I want to minister to you this morning. We've got the privilege of having our kids with us. So I want to minister to you this morning on a very well-known passage. And maybe just so that we can make sure that the grown-ups get it, if I can ask who of the children knows the story about David and Goliath? Anybody read that before? Yep, you know? Yeah? So as I'm sharing this story, you guys must just check if I'm sharing the story right. Okay? All right. I'm cutting out and on. Are you guys testing something? Or yep, all good? All right. David and Goliath. You can turn with me in your Bibles to the book of 1 Samuel chapter 17. Now, if you're wondering, okay, so where did the thing about fear go? Just hold on. Just hold on. We are still sharing on how to put fear in its place. 1 Samuel chapter 17, we find a war going on. We find in 1 Samuel chapter 17 that the Philistines gathered their forces at Soka in Judah, and they pitched camp at a place called Ephes Damim, at Soko Azekah. It sounds like a place for a war, isn't it? And then the Israelites, they came together, said, okay, listen, you gather there, we'll gather on the other side. In between us would be the valley of Elah. And then we'll come together. We're on this side, you're on that side. We'll make this war. We'll start tomorrow. And then the Israelites devised a very good plan. They send a champion. Now I'm going to read this to you from verse 4. A champion named Goliath, who was from Gath, came out of the Philistine camp, and his height was 6 cubits and a span. Now, estimated to be around 3 meters. It's a pretty big boy. He had a bronze helmet, and his head bore a coat of scale of armor, bronze weighing 5,000 shekels. On his legs he wore bronze greaves, like shin guards, and bronze javelin was slung on his back. His spear shaft was like a weaver's rod, and its iron point weighed 600 shekels. So the head of his spear weighed about 7 kilograms, 6.8 kilograms. That's what it was estimated to be. His shield bearer went ahead of him. So it's not just him. This giant of a man, Goliath, came out, stood in the valley of Elah with this big spear. He didn't even carry his own shield. I think his spear was too heavy. Maybe he needed somebody else. So he had a spear and a shield, and somebody in front of him carrying his shield. Goliath, in verse 8, stood and shouted to the ranks of Israel, "Why do you come out and line up for battle? Let's not battle one another. Let's not just go about 2 armies fighting one another." He says, "Am I not a Philistine, and are you not the servants of Saul? Choose a man and have him come down to me. If he's able to fight and kill me, we will become your subject. But if I overcome him and kill him, you will become our subjects and you will serve us." Then the Philistines said, "This day I defy the armies of Israel." Now this word defy literally means to strip down, like paint that you strip off people. He defied the armies of Israel, and he said, "Give me a man, let us fight each other." And now please take note, verse 11. On hearing the Philistines' words, Saul and all the Israelites. How many of the Israelites? All the Israelites did what? All the Israelites were dismayed and terrified. What are we busy with? Isaiah 41, verse 10 says, "Do not be afraid." The word terrified there, exact same word. Do not be afraid. But Saul and all the Israelites, they were afraid. Isaiah says, "Do not be afraid, for I am with you. Do not be dismayed, for I am your God." This is what God said over and over again, from Genesis right through until Revelation. Do not be afraid. Do not be afraid. I'm your God. I am with you. But here, one giant in the valley of Elah, a big boy, yeah, stood in the valley of Elah, and a whole army became what? Terrified and afraid. But luckily, they came over it the next day. No? Children, I thought you guys would, you were listening. Did they get over it the next day? Verse 16. Put verse 16 up for me, please. Verse 16 says, for 40 days, the Philistine came forward every morning and every evening, and he took his stand. So every morning and every evening, this giant, this Goliath came and he said, come, give me somebody and I will kill him, and then you'll be our slaves. 40 days. Okay, maths. Maths. I know you don't like maths. But 40, do you like maths? 40 days, every morning. How many times did he say it? Every morning. 40 days is 40, right? And if he said it every morning and every evening, 80 times. You see, when he says it once, come, give me somebody, I will kill him, you'll be our slaves. Some of them might not be terrified yet. But a lot of them are terrified and dismayed. But after 40 days of getting up in the morning and a giant telling you that tomorrow, maybe today is the day that you'll be our slaves. Just send me somebody to kill and you'll be our slaves. After a while, all the Israelites were afraid. And they were terrified. And they were dismayed for 40 days. We skip over a few verses for time's sake. Verse 23, as he was talking with them, Goliath, the Philistine champion of Gath, stepped out from his lines and shouted. Now, as he was talking with them, it's not Goliath. While Goliath was doing all of this, and the Philistines thought, okay, listen, we've got the Israelites just where we want them. Somebody by the name of Jesse sent his youngest son. He had 3 other sons. They were soldiers. His eldest 3 sons were soldiers in Saul's army. And he said to his youngest son's name was David. Was David there when Goliath came out the first morning? No, he wasn't there. Okay, remember that. David wasn't there. David was where? What was David doing? He was in the sheep pen, yes. It was looking after the sheep. He was just, come little lambs, come, yeah. That's what he was doing. The rest were having an army and they were having a giant shouting at them. He was just taking care of his dad's sheep. And his dad said, David, I want you to take some bread and some food for your brothers. Will you go do that? Yeah, no, I'll go to do that. So the youngest son, David, went and he brought his brothers some food. And this is verse 23, and while he was talking with them, he was talking with his brothers, finding out how they're doing, Goliath the Philistine, champion of Gath, stepped out from his lines and he shouted the usual defiance. What was his usual defiance? What was he saying?
Send a man for me to kill and then you'll be our slave.
Yeah, there we go. You guys better listen. I mean, these guys, they know exactly how the Bible works, these young ones. This is what Goliath was saying. He said, send me somebody. And David heard, this guy is mocking God's army. And he was looking at his left. And he was looking at his right. And at his left and at his right, he saw people that were terrified and dismayed. And they were all afraid. And David wasn't there the first day, so he didn't get it. David was with the sheep. So as this was happening, listen to what happened in verse 24 with the Israelites. You say, Piet, you're making too much of this. What happened to the Israelites. Whenever the Israelites saw the man, saw Goliath, they all fled from him in great fear. They were afraid. And then David heard something. Verse 25 says, now the Israelites have been saying, do you see this man keeps coming out? He comes out to defy Israel. The king will give great wealth to the man who kills him. He will also give his daughter in marriage, and he will be exempt from family taxes. His whole family will be exempt from taxes in Israel. So David's going, wait a minute, wait. Am I hearing this correctly? Are you telling me there's a giant in the valley of Elah, and whoever goes and kills this guy, let me, so you don't know it's my words. Whoever kills this guy, the king will give him great wealth. Okay, so he will be rich if he kills Goliath. Yeah, that's true. But wait, he will give him his daughter, which is the princess. Yes, which would make that guy then a prince. Come on. Yes? That's not all. It's like an ad on TV. And wait, there's more. His whole family will not pay tax forever. Man, I will say, my boy, you can go, man. No tax. Come on. You guys say, no, this is not what David. I'll read it to you. Verse 26, read it with me. David asked the men standing near him, what will be done for the man who kills this Philistine and removes the disgrace from Israel? After he heard what they said, he said, wait a minute, what will be done? He said, that will be done. Okay. Then David says this, who is this guy? Who is this uncircumcised Philistine that he will talk like that about God's armies? I mean, does he know who God is? Basically, that's what David is asking. Did anybody tell him what he's doing? This poor giant. That's exactly what I see David asking. Now you must follow, because otherwise you won't believe me, right? Verse 27. They repeated to him what they had been saying and told him. What did they say to him and told him? What were they repeating? Oh, this man will get great wealth. He will marry the princess. And him and his whole family will not pay taxes. So David kept asking that. So his big brother came and said, hey, what are you doing? Eliab, David's oldest brother, verse 28, heard him speaking with the men. He burned with anger and he asked them, why have you come down here? And with whom did you leave those few sheep in the wilderness? No, I know how conceited you are. This word conceited. He says, I know, David, how prideful you are. This is what David's oldest brother said. I know how prideful you are and how wicked your heart is. This is the same guy that God says, is a man after my own heart. His oldest brother says, I know how wicked your heart is. I know you're very prideful. What questions are you asking here? You're a shepherd. Go back to the sheep. Hello? Are you with me? Is this in 1 Samuel 17 as well with the stones and the, because that's the only part of the story we tell. So did David's oldest brother believe the way David believed? Just so that you have that clear for now. So like any young or youngest brother in the family, immediately said, yes, my older brother, I'm so sorry. I will go to the sheep. No. Now David in verse 29 said, hey, what have I done to you? I didn't even ask you, man. He literally said, can't I speak as well? I can ask what I want. Are you reading this with me? You read it there. That's what he said. Hey, listen, you leave me alone. I'm asking these people. They said you'll get rich. I'm asking them. You say, Piet, you're making too much of this. Verse 32, David said to Saul, no, let me just read verse 30 for you. He then turned away to somebody else and brought up the same matter, and the men answered him the same as before. David said, hey, I'm not talking to you. Hey, by the way, what would be done to the guy that killed? Little brothers are pretty annoying, I'm telling you. Even if they're David. Doesn't mean that they're prideful. Doesn't mean that they're wrong. It might be that they are right, even if they are the only ones. Right? What David said, what did David say? David said, what will it be done to them? It kills us. Are you serious? He says, yes. So what David said, read with me. What David says, verse 31, was overheard and reported to Saul. So somebody went to Saul. Saul, king, there's somebody that's asking about this reward that you're giving. Nobody else is asking for 40 days. Nobody. Nobody's asking about the treasure. Who do you think spread the word or said that this will happen? Do you think somebody else but Saul could say, okay, I'll give my daughter? Hello? So who made the decree? Saul said, listen, the guy that kills this Philistine, I will make him rich. I'll give him my daughter and he will not pay taxes, him or his whole family. Saul said that. And I think every morning Saul would go, okay, is there anybody yet? He says, no, nobody's even asking. Nobody. He said, should I raise the reward? 40 days, nobody's asking. The 40th day, King Saul, you won't guess what happened. There's somebody asking. That's a good news. So what's the bad news? It's a shepherd boy. Yeah? David said to Saul, Saul said, bring that guy here. Is he it's not in the Bible, but I think he must have asked, is he the only one asking? So bring him to me. David said to Saul, this is David, remember, just forgive David because he wasn't there the first day. He wasn't there the whole 40 days. He didn't get what was going on. Or maybe he was the only one getting what was going on. But then we'll figure it out now. But David went to Saul. The shepherd boy went to the king and said, King, don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. Don't you worry. The shepherd boy is telling the king, no, don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. Why? He said this. David said to Saul, let no one lose heart on account, verse 32, of this Philistine. Your servant will go fight him. I'm your servant. You are the king. I'm the shepherd boy. I'll go fight him. Don't you guys worry. Don't be afraid. And King Saul said, I've been waiting for this. You're the right guy. There you go. No, he knows it's not the truth. Because what did Saul say? Verse 33, Saul replied, you are not able to go out against this Philistine and fight him. You are only a young man, and he has been a warrior from his youth. You don't know how to fight. You're a shepherd boy. Now I'm going to put my life and all the Israelites' lives in your hands. You're not able to go fight this guy. Okay, that's the intro. Now you've got to stay with me as we come to the sermon. Verse 34. But David said to Saul, now listen carefully how David presents himself. Listen. Your servant has been keeping his father's sheep. Not only am I a shepherd boy, not only am I your servant, but the sheep isn't even mine. I've been tending my father's sheep. Your servant had been keeping his father's sheep. And when a lion and a bear came and carried off the sheep from the flock, I went after it, and I rescued the sheep from its mouth. And when it turned on me, I seized it by its hair and struck it and killed it. Now, this is scriptural vocabulary. Let me put it to you in plain English. David said, you are right. I am not a warrior. I'm a shepherd boy who's tending my father's sheep. But let me tell you, I've been watching over my dad's sheep. And every time a lion or a bear would come and want to take one of my sheep, okay, my father's sheep, I would club it. And I would chase it away. And if that lion is a little bit stubborn and he turns around, I will take it by the jaw and I will club it to death. That's what David said. He said, if the lion does not understand that I will not give him the sheep, and he comes back, if the lion doesn't get that the sheep does not have to defend themselves, I am here to do that, then I will kill that lion. Because my father's sheep is my responsibility. Yeah? You're starting to get this sermon, yes? Then David said in verse 36, your servant has killed both lion and bear. This uncircumcised Philistine, this guy that knows nothing about what he's saying, will be just like the lion and the bear. If he listens, I might let him go. But if he's stubborn, I will have to kill him. Does it sound like there's any question in David about who's going to win? This Philistine will be like one of them because he has defied me. Hello? Did I read it wrong? He has defied the armies of the living God. Okay, now you've got to stay with me because this part is not Christianity 101. This part has got to be revealed in your heart. This Goliath did not defy my sheep. He defied God's sheep. And if a lion does not stay alive, if it defies my father's sheep, what do you think is the chance of this man making it out of the valley of Elah, talking this way about God's children? And when David said this, Saul made the same mistake as us. We get half the message. Okay, wait a minute. This guy gets it. David gets it. He's not afraid. He's a shepherd boy. He knows what to do with a lion. He knows what to do with a bear. We are safe now. He moves in God's strength. He will defeat Goliath. And Saul said, okay, but David, if you go, please just take my, just take my armor. I couldn't get the wapenrusting thing out, you know. Just take my armor. Saul dressed David with his armor. David fastened it and put it on. I'm gonna go paraphrase that so that we can just save time a little bit. And David did not say, please do not read that David was too small so that Saul's clothes was too big for him. That's not in the Bible. Some of you are going, what, are you serious? Go find me a passage that said David was small. That's not part of the sermon, but you go look at it. It just says this. David said, listen, I'm not used to these things. I'm not used to these things. I can't go with this. King Saul, you're getting the message, but you're only getting half the message. You're only getting half the message. I'll tell you now what was the half that he got and the half that he didn't get. But in any case, so David said, no, I can't go with these things. Let me go as I am. Then David put everything down. He just took, what did he take? He took verse 40. Then he took his staff in his hand, chose 5 smooth stones from the stream, put them in the pouch of his shepherd's bag, and with his sling in his hand approached the Philistine. Meanwhile, the Philistine with his shield bearer in front of him, so they are 2. They are two already, except for the fact that the one is a giant. They are two, and it's just David on the other side. Just with a slingshot, all right? In front of him, kept coming closer, and then Goliath made the same mistake as Saul. He said, he looked at David over and he saw he was a little more than a boy, glowing with health and handsome, and he despised him. I don't know why he despised him, because he was handsome, because, handsome is a good thing. So he despised him, and he said to David, am I a dog that you come to me with a stick? And the Philistine cursed David by his gods. Come here, he said, and I'll give your flesh to the birds and the wild animals. Now listen, verse 45. David said to the Philistine, you come against me with sword and with spear and with javelin. But I come against you in the name of the Lord Almighty, the God of the armies of Israel, whom you have defied. This day the Lord will deliver you into my hands, and I will strike you down. I will cut off your head. This very day I will give the carcasses of the Philistine army to the birds of the field, the animals, and the whole world will know. What will the whole world know? That there is a God in Israel. So all those who gathered here will know that it is not by sword nor by spear that the Lord saves, for the battle is the Lord's, and He will give you into my hands. You see, so we get the fact that David was their shepherd boy, and the odds was against them. That part we get. We get that God was with David, but here's the part we struggle with. We look at David and we see David in the valley of Elah, and we see him with that slingshot of his, and we see God being with him, and we see David killing Goliath, telling him, listen, you come against me with swords and spears, and I come against you in the name of the Lord. But we forget that David saw things a little bit differently. We see David. David says, wait a minute, all of you are seeing this picture wrong. Don't see me. I want to explain this to you. When the lion and the bear came to David, what did the sheep do? What did the sheep do? Some of them stepped forward and said, I've done a little bit of jiu-jitsu, David. I will be with you. Don't worry. We'll sort out this little bit. Some of them said, have you at least learned how to protect yourselves? Some of them said, no. Have you guys prepared? Are you ready for warfare, for bear warfare or lion warfare? Are you ready? No. They just stood there. And David stepped in. Because David is the shepherd. And the sheep is, it's not rocket science. The sheep is sheep. David said, King Saul, you're looking at me and you're wanting to put some armor on me. You want to prepare me for battle. Yes? He says, you're getting half the message. I'm not going to fight Goliath. I'm just going to put a sheep in the valley of Elah next to a giant, and the shepherd will show up. Yes. You see, you think, King Saul, big brother, I'm sorry, but you guys think I'm going to be the one battling Goliath. I'm not the one battling Goliath. I'm just going to be the stubborn little sheep running. I will fight you. And then the shepherd will say, hey, this one is mine. The sheep is mine. He says, Goliath, you're not getting it, man. You're seeing things wrong. You want me to be a sheep that's preparing for battle. I'm not preparing for battle. I'm a sheep. Hello? He says, your fight is not against me. Saying, Pastor Piet, you're reading too much into this. David said, the battle is the Lord's. The battle is the Lord's. Come on. The battle is the Lord's. Today, the battle is the Lord's. In your life, the battle is the Lord's. Yeah, but Piet, we've got to prepare for spiritual warfare, If you don't know exactly what to do, you've got to cover yourself, Get some prophets, get some people praying over you, then you can do it. You've got to be ready. What am I saying? Don't pray. No, I'm saying don't confuse the the picture. You are not the one defeating the things that make you fearful and make you dismayed. Put fear in its place. The things that you are afraid of is afraid of your God. Come on. Don't read the story of David and see a lamb that was good at fighting. David did not go to the fields and go, I just want to prepare. I've got tomorrow it might be a bear. A lion maybe. What do you think David did when he tended the sheep? Then, hey. And what did the sheep do? What was the sheep's responsibility? Listening to the shepherd's voice. Following the shepherd. Now let me complete the picture. I told you that David said, okay, I'm just going to put a lamb in the valley of Elah and the shepherd will show up. Let me complete the picture. Where do sheep or lamb go? Where the shepherd leads. Guess who was in the valley of Elah first? David's going, I don't know what's going on with you guys. Hey, that guy's in trouble. He's standing there and there's a shepherd there. And he's in trouble because that shepherd is not me. You see, the bear had some worries and the lion had some worries. Yes? But that guy's in trouble. Why? Let me ask you, can a man just defeat a lion or a bear? Come on. Hey, you can just go, a lion. Oh, no, don't take my sheep. No. The lion goes, hey, you are food. Yes? But complete the picture. When the sheep is in trouble, the shepherd shows up. Who's David? When David is in trouble, the shepherd shows up. Who is? Come on. You've got to wake up. Put fear in its place. Stop being afraid of the bear or the lion or Goliath or the Philistines. Understand that you are not a sheep to be readied for battle. You are a sheep to understand that there is a shepherd. Listen to his voice. Follow his leading. And I promise you this, there is nothing and no one more fearful or more to be afraid of, to be revered than him. Hello? Fearful is not the right word. There's no shepherd more awesome than the one that says, hey, it's you and me. You are the sheep, hey? You're the sheep. Just listen. Come here. Come here, I'll show you. Goliath is nothing. Don't worry about Goliath. Why could David do this? With David, fear was in its place. Verse 49, so Goliath came, David reached into his bag, put a stone into his slingshot, and he struck Goliath right in front of his head, and he died. Goliath died. Now, I know that you've heard a lot of things and sermons and so on, people saying, with giants, there's a soft spot in their head and so on. All that I can tell you is if somebody hits me with the head, and it has happened before, the front part of the head is one of the hardest parts that I've been hit with, and that's the front part of the head, right? It's just so that you know. So I'm not going to give you something that is not in Scripture. I'm not going to tell you that there was a soft spot in the front of his head. All that I'm going to tell you is that what happened there was God defeating a giant that made the mistake of taking on God's lambs, God's people. Last little bit, you might say, Piet, what does that have to do with us? Literally everything. Luke chapter 10, Jesus says to his disciples, I'm sending you out 2 by 2 to as last that I'm among wolves. Sending you. And what do? Among wolves. We're going to sort these wolves out, you know. And what? Sort these wolves out, you know. No. No. God turns wolves into lambs. If you are willing to be a lamb that knows that there's a shepherd that is protecting you, that is with you. You see, the thing is this. As long as you don't know who the shepherd is in the relationship between you and God, you'll always be, and please keep this in mind, you'll always be a sheep trying to do some spiritual BJJ. Hello? You'll always be a sheep trying to be good enough. I want to be prepared for battle. The battle belongs to the Lord. Put fear in its place. The things that are afraid of you, or that you are afraid of, is afraid of God. If you know that or not, it is. I'm going to close with a song this morning. Now, if you got this picture a little bit wrong, if for a moment you started believing that you're actually supposed to be protecting yourself, I want to tell you that you are very wrong. Yes. You cannot do that. There is a shepherd. He will take care of you. David understood this in Psalm 28. He says, the Lord is my strength and my shield. In Psalm 23, he said, He leads me. He leads me. He protects me. He guides me. He even sets the table before my enemies. I will even eat with my enemies. I'm not afraid of them because He's with me. Isaiah says, do not be afraid. Why? Because God is with you. He's with you. Come on. Let's put fear in its place.